Chapter 1676 Gu Shijiu threw the animals at the bloody plum tree one by one. As usual, the bloody plum tree sucked the animals dry in no time. The muscle clenched its fist at the sight of what it witnessed. The bloody tree was a bigger eater than it was. Lan Yu did not quite understand. Gu Shijiu was feeding the tree, how was she going to break the formation? The array formation is an ancient evil formation. It is not that I cannot break it, but if we do it the usual way, the man behind the vicious plan will be alarmed. By the time we break in, Lan Weihu and Lan Jingyi will probably be long gone, Di Fui continued to explain. Yan Chen looked at Gu Shijiu in bewilderment. Is she trying to do it unusually? Once the tree is well fed, does it mean that the door will open itself? Soon, there was a little movement on the ground. The bloody plum tree shifted a little, and a huge hole emerged at the bottom of the trunk. Lan Yu was utterly shocked. He could not believe what had just happened before his eyes. He thought that the tree would open its entrance automatically once it was well fed. Shortly, his speculation was proven wrong. Two men emerged from the hole. They looked like scholars from the way they dressed. They did not seem like they had just emerged from the ground. In fact, they looked more like two scholars who were just about to leave the examination hall. They observed their surroundings, and one of them noticed something. What is going on? The tree is unusually active tonight. Where did all the food come from? The other, who was equally confused, shook his head. Let's check the perimeter, so our master will not be distracted from his work. The two of them quickly took a detour around the plum garden. They did not forget to seal the entrance before they left, so the bloody plum tree returned to its normal appearance. Gu Shijiu and the rest of them stayed floating in the air within the wizardry barrier that had been set up by Di Fui so that they could stay unnoticed. Yan Qin turned to look at Gu Shijiu with eyes full of admiration, for she could always find the solution. Both the men took a quick look around the plum garden. Soon, they found a wild boar and a wolf within the woods. One of the men responded, "Actually, there is nothing odd. Our master has once said that the plum garden would release a unique scent to attract praise. The scent is probably stronger tonight." While they were chatting, they also performed a special technique to open the sealed entrance. The hole appeared again, and the staircases emerged to guide them in. Also, they did not forget to seal the hole again to return the tree to its usual appearance. Many staircases led them deep into the ground. On both sides of the walls, many candles were flickering in the dark. These unique candles would not be extinguished even after burning for 1,000 years. While they were walking, one of the men had a shiver running through his body. Strange. I have a feeling that someone is following us, he confessed. His companion took a quick look around and saw nothing. Relieved, he answered, "There is nothing to be worried about. Who could have possibly entered this place? We have always been very careful when opening and closing the entrance. Forget about humans, I do not think that even a fly can make its way in. Don't you overthink." The man scratched his head in bewilderment. "I also do not think that others could make their way in." He sighed. "Maybe it is because there have been too many deaths around, so I keep thinking that their spirits stay behind everywhere." He continued to walk while he talked. After a while, he realized that his companion was far behind. He turned around and waited for him. "Why are you so slow all of a sudden?" he complained. Chapter 1677, Let's go quickly. It is the Lord's birthday tonight, we cannot have any mishaps. We need to keep watch. The Lord is going to break free, am I right? His companion was speaking with a sense of humor. Yeah, two pretty ladies are going to be devoured by the Lord for training purposes. What a waste. It would be better if he passes them to his brothers to play for a bit before that. You are right. Oh right, the Lord will not allow others to disturb him while he satisfies his lust. Who is keeping watch of where the Lord is at? Should we go over and give them a warning to make sure they do not disturb our Lord? His companion suggested. That person broke into a laugh. There are many proficient practitioners keeping watch of where the Lord is at. Anyone is more proficient than either one of us. Everyone is utterly aware, and will not disturb our lord. There is no need for you who keep watch on the gates to warn them. His companion sighed. Actually, I am excited to see how he would break free. Even if I could not gain any benefit, having a look would be good as well. His companion hit his shoulder. What is there to see? The Lord is at the bloody pond. That is an extremely ghastly place, not where we could approach. We had better stay put and keep watch of the gates. Let us wait until our Lord builds up his influence, then, both of us would be founding heroes. We would be generously appreciated. It would not be hard to see some pretty ladies then, right? There is no need to be tempted by the two ladies right now. His companion threw him a glance. You are right. That is indubitably right, since I am a few years older than you and can understand the situation better. He lifted his arm to place it over his companion's shoulder. If you follow me later on, I will teach you. He was forced to stop his sentence halfway. Before he could put his arm over his companion's shoulder, his waist suddenly cramped. His eyes suddenly dilated as he stared at his companion. He opened his mouth slightly as if going to cry out something, but no sound could be heard. His body limped, and he was no longer breathing. In the dark, a person emerged. He bent down and wanted to snatch the overcoat of the dead man. Hold on. The companion lifted his sleeves, and the overcoat automatically left the dead body. A streak of light flashed across, and the overcoat became utterly clean. Then, it was sent over. The person in the dark was, in fact, Gu Shizhou, and the person who attacked one of the men earlier was Di Fui. He was good at acting and disguising himself. Gu Shizhou remained silent, took over the clothing and put it on herself. Then, she immediately used her spiritual power to alter her facial features and her height. A moment later, she was no different from the person who had died. When the two gatekeepers came in earlier, Di Fui and her immediately made themselves invisible to go in. It was utterly well planned. Gu Shizhou did not want to work with him initially, but it was the only way that both of them could enter. Seeing how keen Di Fui was to enter, he was definitely doing it for Lan Jingyi. Gu Shizhou suspected that Di Fui was most likely still afraid that under her rash emotions she would take revenge on Lan Jingyi. Fortunately, she would not do such stupid things and cause trouble for her friend. At least not before she acquired the ability to. After collecting herself together, she immediately rushed inside. The person in the dark would attack Lan Weihu that night. She needed to rush over and save her. Lan Weihu looked at what was happening underneath her feet with trepidation. Chapter 1678. Underneath Lan Weihu was a bloody pond that was gushing with blood. Many skulls were dancing within the savage sea. Her body was chained up by 4 thin silver chains as she was suspended in the air. The chains were not locking her limbs but instead passed through her humerus and ankle bones. It was excruciating. Her small face was pale, and her forehead was full of sweat. Drop by drop collected at her chin, and from her chin, they dropped like puddles of sweat. Within the vast emptiness of the skull's eyes were wicked red lights, as if staring at Lan Weihu, thinking of jumping out and devouring her blood and flesh for a couple of times. The white teeth of the skulls were about to brush themselves against the sole of her feet. She bit her lips tightly to prevent herself from letting out a cry. She was in pain. And in fear. However, no one was there to save her. To be punished alive like that, every second was tormenting. It would be better if she died. Had it not been for the uneasiness in her heart, Lan Weihu would have killed herself by biting off her tongue. Dying would be great, dying would mean no more pain, but she had not been able to meet Yan Chen. She had not seen him for almost a year. How dearly she missed him. Since they last bid goodbye, she had not been able to meet or contact him. To her dismay, Yan Chen did not contact her either. Perhaps he had let her go. The longer they spent apart, the more she missed him. Especially now that the wedding was near, she longed for him even more and grew scared. She never thought that the maidservant who had always been by her side would set her up in a trap, forcing her to leave a dangerous shed only to be dropped into a tiger's claws. Brother Yen Che. She muttered to herself. Do you not want me anymore? Of course he does not want you anymore. From the corner emerged a woman's voice that was full of rage. Any man would not like such a feeble girl like you. Had it not been for your ancestry, why would the king of the Blue Fox family marry you? How are you compatible to be a national master? What is worse is your fascination for such an ordinary man like Yen Chen. You left the prestigious position of the queen of the Blue Fox family, and instead, chose to run away with a man likened to dust. Shut up. Lan Weihu looked towards the origin of the voice with a pair of fiercely looking eyes. I would not allow you to disparage my brother Yen Chen. He is the best man in the world, nothing likened to any dust. You who conspired with the bad guys are the real dust. Above the pond was a floating round and translucent bloody ball. Within the ball was a young lady. The young lady had a head of seaweed-like long hair, with her clothes covering her body. Her upper body was no different from a normal young lady, but her lower body had a green-colored fish tail. The young lady did not have any chains around herself, but she was curled up and trapped in the bloody ball. She was a mermaid. Lan Weihu was furious looking at the mermaid. She wanted to jump down and slash her with a knife. After Lan Weihu was taken out of the Blue Fox family by her maidservant, the person who greeted them was that young mermaid lady. She was alert enough to smell something fishy. However, as she was about to turn back and run, the mermaid immediately rushed towards her and grabbed her. With the help of the maidservant, Lan Weihu was defeated, and she fell into the hands of the mermaid. That mermaid kept her confined within the bottom of a water ball. Chapter 1679. The mermaid kept her confined within a water ball in the underground and only pulled her back to the surface right before she was about to suffocate to death. Before she could even take a few deep breaths, she was again drawn back down to the bottom of the underground again. All the while Lan Wei begged her and scolded her, but that mermaid appeared to be oblivious. She was like a lifeless robot dragging her all the way here. It was only when they reached here that Lan Weihu could finally breathe properly, but she was put through a series of torturous events now. The people here did not wait to protrude her humerus and hang her in the air, not knowing the reason why they were even doing so. However, the mermaid was not treated well either. After coming here, she was trapped in the bloody pond, unable to free herself. Soon after, the mermaid was back to her senses and became equally terrified as Lan Weihu. Both of them were in the same boat, but the mermaid made it seem like she was a bigger deal than Lan Weihu. This infuriated the latter. Besides that, who knew where the young lady got a sense of superiority from? As she cried out, "You foolish humans," Lan Weihu was tempted to sew her mouth up. Lan Weihu, stop thinking about the useless brother you have. He will not come and save you. Even if he came, the Lord here is mighty. It would be foolish to think that any human could be on par with him. Death awaited any such fool. Stop expecting him to come, just wait for your death. Lan Weihu was furious. Are you not trapped in here as well? Are you not going to suffer the same fate as me? Ha, I am not in the same condition as you. Brother Huang will save me, and he would not let anything happen to me. However, Brother Huang only minds his own business. Had he come he would only save me, and would not care about a fox like you. Lan Weihu ridiculed, Brother Huang is a nobody. Shijiu will come and save me. She is smart and powerful, more trustable than your brother Huang. There is no one she cannot find. She will be able to find this place. The young mermaid was filled with rage. How daring! How could you call Brother Huang a nobody? His position is more prestigious than Gu Zijius. His ability is much greater than that of hers. Gu Shijiu could never compare to him. The two of them exchanged their points as they quarreled. It was all without meaning. Lan Weihu was easily infuriated, and the young mermaid was only trying to hide her fear of the future. Attacking Lan Weihu was her way of fortifying her confidence. Who is this Brother Huang you speak of? A voice intruded their conversation. The young mermaid replied, He is my brother-in-law, and the lord of the land. It was when she finished her sentence that she realized something was wrong. She looked up and noticed that the wall cracked into a door, and a man in blue entered. The man in blue was handsome. He had a rather stolid beauty, but within his actions was a sense of promiscuity. His lips curved slightly upwards while looking at the two of them, almost having an evil taste to it. Lan Weihu had been trapped for so long, but this was her first time seeing someone else. She looked at him with a vigilant eye. "Who are you?" The young mermaid's countenance changed. You are." The young mermaid was Lan Jingyi. She once followed her brother as he slipped into the palace, where she had seen the new emperor of the Feishing kingdom. The man standing before her eyes looked like that emperor. However, she only observed from afar that time, and a group of maidservants surrounded the emperor at the time. Chapter 1680. The emperor was wearing a majestic yellow robe and looked extremely dignified. His aura seemed different from the man right before her now, so she could not be sure whether he was the same person. The man in blue sighed softly. "Who do you think I am?" His voice was amiable, like a gentleman. Are you part of the royals?" "Which prince are you?" Lan Jingyi guessed due to his similar appearance. The man in blue looked up and smiled. He then placed his palm together lightly. "Why do you not suspect that I am the emperor?" Lan Jingyi was speechless. The man in blue looked at her pretty face that had turned pale. He then asked, surprised. Lan Jingyi took in a breath of air as she continued, If you are the emperor, then, are you here to save us?" "Under whose request are you here?" The man in blue sighed. "You are such a naive child. I have tried so hard to capture you, why would I be here to save you? Do you think I am that free?" The person behind everything was, in fact, the emperor of the Feishing kingdom. Lan Jingyi's countenance changed. "Why did you capture us? Release me now, or else Brother Huang will not forgive you or show you any mercy." The man in blue laughed. "So the Lord is your Brother Huang, now that is interesting." He paced slowly towards the bloody ball, looking at Lan Jingyi who was trapped within the ball. Suddenly, he hit the wall of the cave with his palm. "I have heard that a drum made of the skin of a mermaid would produce a sound so loud that it could be heard 1,000 miles away. Is that true?" Lan Jingyi was speechless. The man in blue examined her a little more. "Just like most mermaids, your skin looks good. Using it to make a drum would be a waste, it would be better to use it for clothing. I can sew some pretty cloud-like patterns on it, then it would be pretty and protective." Lan Jingyi's face turned pale. This joke is not funny. My brother Huang, still thinking of using your brother Huang to threaten me? If you did not mention him, I would have made it all easy, but since you have mentioned him, that made me feel quite uncomfortable. I would have to give you a taste of what I could do then. A short knife as thin as a cricket's wing emerged from the man's sleeve. Instantly, it shattered the bloody ball. Lan Jingyi screamed and rolled down from the bloody ball. As she was about to fall into the pond, a streak of silver strands emerged from the palm of the man in blue, got hold of Lan Jingyi's waist, and dropped her by the edge of the pond. Lan Jingyi was still unable to gather herself. Although she did not fall into the bloody gushing water, a part of her clothes caught the blood and it was like sulfuric acid as her clothes had been corroded to pieces. The skulls in the bloody pool began to shriek and jump more frantically. As Lan Jingyi wanted to get on her feet after landing on the ground, the man in blue placed his foot on her chest, preventing her from getting up. The man in blue was obnoxious. He did not only step on her but used his toes to inflict more pain. Lan Jingyi was embarrassed because of the location of his toes. She screamed, "You pervert! Let go of me, this is considered perverted." Although the action of the man in blue was rather perverse, his handsome face made him look like an open-minded man. "I have more perverted acts. Can you think of any of them?" As he was talking, he used the sharp knife in his palm to slit open her placket. Chapter 1681. Lan Jingyi's attire was specially made to be able to withstand standard attacks. However, its placket was now slit by him, and it was torn apart. Lan Jingyi's body was alluring, curvy and with an ample bosom. Now that her clothing was torn, a silver inner wear was visible. No love birds or lotus flowers of any kind were seen on the apron, but instead, it was the image of a person. The person had black hair and white clothes, just like the Lord. The man in blue examined the figure on her apron and smiled. Is that Brother Huang you have sewn on your innerwear? Having your brother-in-law sewn on your apron, little mermaid. It looks like you like him, but does he know how you feel towards him? Oh well, since you like him so much, when I remove your skin, I could make it into a puppet doll and put on your innerwear before I send it as a gift to him. His smile was amiable, and his voice gentle, but what he said was eerie and terrifying. Lan Jingyi's entire body shivered. She wanted to move but could not, she wanted to curse but did not dare. Her pretty face was pale and at a loss for words. You cannot do this to me. I am the princess of the kingdom of the mermaids. If you kill me, Brother Huang will not leave this unavenged, and the mermaid tribe will not forgive you. Are you willing to risk that just for the sake of a mermaid's skin? Let go of me, and I will repay your kindness later on. Pay me? How? The man in blue liked to play cat and mice games. He had already had a plan, but still wanted to play with her. He wanted to see her desperately begging before him. Before any response was given, he used the thin knife to slit the ribbon of her inner wear. You would like to give me yourself? The frigid tip of the knife touched Lan Jingyi's skin, and she had goosebumps all over. She was so shocked that she saw blackness before her eyes. You. Look at what I have done for you. Let go of me, What have you done for me? I have brought in Lan Weihu for you. That was, in fact, a small deed of yours, but had you not been affected by my spell, why would you be so obedient? Instantly, Lan Jingyi's innerwear was torn apart and slipped down from her chest. Hence, her provocative body was entirely out in the open before the eyes of the man in blue. Lan Jingyi panicked. She wanted to curl herself up, but 3 streaks of cold light emerged from the sleeves of the man in blue. Lan Jingyi gave off an ear-piercing scream. The 3 streaks were 3 long nails which pressed onto Lan Jingyi's hands and her tail. She was nailed to the ground alive. That was a very humiliating posture. Her fresh blood was like a stream as it flowed out from where the long nails had pierced. There was a sense of bloody beauty that moment. Lan Jingyi was in so much pain that her face grew pale. She had never been through such punishment throughout her life. The long nails that pierced through her body gave her pain in her bones, making her want to roll about and to struggle. Unfortunately, moving even a little would make it hurt 10 times more. Her clothes were torn, and her snow-colored body was lying within the pile of torn cloth. Fresh blood was flowing down from her wrists. She looked like a human fish. Her upper body was snow-colored, making her look like a 28-years-old young lady. Her lower body was pale green, full of glittery scales. Chapter 1682 Droplets of sweat emerged from her skin and scales. Like magic, the droplets condensed into pearls, each crystal clear, rolling on the ground. Mermaid sweat turns into pearls. Seems like this theory is not wrong after all. The man in blue laughed, looking at Lan Jingyi who was in so much pain that even her lips were trembling. Why did you not tear up? A mermaid's tears are what I need. Lan Jingyi was in so much pain that she even thought of killing herself, but it was hard for a mermaid to tear up. She was no different. It is not that she did not think of crying, she could not. The man in blue looked at her for a moment and sighed. Seems like this torture is not enough. He moved his fingers, and the thin tip of his knife. Lan Jingyi cried out in pain as a huge scale was ripped off her by the man in blue. Ripping off her scales was more painful than pricking at her bones. Lan Jingyi was in so much pain that she shuddered, not only sweating profusely but finally, tears emerged from her eyes. She blinked a little, and small teardrops fell to the ground into a spherical-like pearl. This one sparkled much better than her sweat. The man in blue lifted his fingers, and the mermaid's tears dropped into his palm. He examined it, and shook his head. Too small. He then turned his attention back towards Lan Jingyi. He sighed. You are so stingy, not even wanting to cry larger droplets of tears. I will need to force it out myself. He wielded the thin knife in his hand, and a couple of scales were ripped off this time. She was like a fish out of the water, resisting it for a while. Finally, big droplets of tears rolled down. Within her tears were blood. A mermaid's tears were half red and half transparent, like a pretty cat's eye, rolling about on the ground. Lan Weihu was in unspeakable terror just looking at it from above. Although she hated Lan Jingyi and wanted to cut her with a knife, looking at the scene before her made her think twice. The man in blue looked like a gentleman, but what he did made him as cruel as a devil. That made Lan Weihu gather insight into the base level of a person's cruelty. That mermaid had helped the man in blue with such a great deed, and he instead treated her so cruelly. She could only expect worse from him later on. Lan Weihu was terrified as well. Her eyes were dilated as she stared at the man in blue. If a cold gaze could kill someone, the man in blue had already been killed by Lan Weihu. The man in blue held the mermaid's tears in his palms and said softly, "Still not enough." He bowed his head down and looked at Lan Jingyi, who almost passed out. "I will rip 2 more scales off your body. Cry as you wish." The tip of the knife touched her scales, and Lan Jingyi was so scared that she shrieked. "I will cry. Stop ripping." "I will do it," she cried out all the tears she had throughout her life. The man in blue had collected a heap of mermaid's tears, and finally, he was satisfied. Then, a pair of sparkling eyes turned towards Lan Weihu, who was still suspended in the air. Lan Weihu could feel her hair standing on its ends. She cried in a fury, "You can kill me, but please do not humiliate me. Just kill me if you want to. Or torture me until I cry." The man in blue sighed. "Such a charming young lady like you, how could I bear to let you cry? A mermaid's tears are precious, but those that belong to you, little fox, are not valuable at all." Lan Weihu looked at him warily. "Then what do you want?" Chapter 1683. Lan Weihu looked at him in fear. "What do you want to do to me? I don't think you want me to just watch you torture people, right?" The blue-shirted young man gently said, "Of course not. I am not free to do so. However, this mermaid has been humiliating you, so I tortured her in front of you to avenge you. You should feel happy and comforted. I am not. You are such an unappreciative girl." The blue-shirted young man shook his head as he spoke. "I took revenge for you because of Shijiao and wanted you to be happy. However, I did not know that you are so unappreciative. What a waste of my effort. If you're good to me, you should let me go." "It is not possible. It was so hard for me to get you here. Why do you want me?" I want to borrow something from you. I was afraid that you would not want to lend it to me, so I had to catch you first in order for us to have a proper discussion about it." Lan Weihu was speechless. She asked, "What is it?" "The blood of your heart." Lan Weihu's face turned pale. It turned out that this bastard wanted her life. It was even worse than torturing Lan Jingyi. The blue-shirted young man looked at her pale little face. "Are you terrified now? Don't worry, I am still a gentleman. You are the best friend of the girl I like, I will not kill you." Lan Weihu glared at him angrily. How could he take her blood from her heart without killing her? The blue-shirted man turned over his palm, and there was a needle there. This needle was as sharp and thick as the needle used to knit sweaters. It was about 1 foot long, and it was now sparkling, which made people feel frightened. "Did you see this? I am going to stab this into the vein in your heart, and your blood will flow out along this needle. Don't worry, I will not take too much of your blood. I just need enough to fill up this cup." He also showed her the cup in his hand. The method he used was quite similar to the modern way to take bear bile. Gu Shijiao used to tell Lan Weihu about some anecdotes from the modern world. When she heard about this, she thought that it was ruthless to the bear. Of course, she was also filled with anger. She felt that it was too cruel and also felt sad for those bears. Unfortunately, it was her turn. Nolan Weihu's face was pale. At first, she did not want to die before she saw Yan Chen, but now she would rather die. She made up her mind, and when she was about to bite her tongue, the blue-shirted young man had been prepared for it. He waved his sleeve, and Lan Wei's acupuncture point was blocked. She could not move at all now. The blue-shirted young man reached out again, and the 4 thin chains on the Lan Weihu slid away silently. Lan Weihu was pulled to the shore of the blood pool. She could do nothing but watch as the distance between her and the blue-shirted young man was getting shorter. Help! Shijiu, Yan Chen, help me. There were thin tubes that looked like human blood vessels everywhere. The thin tubes were crimson, and there was bright red blood flowing inside making a creaking sound. This place was not really an underground building, but rather, it resembled the inside of a monster. It all resembled a spider web. Every street was well connected. There were many strange-shaped buildings along the way that looked like the hive, although the sizes were different, they were all bright red which looked like the internal organs of animals. There were too many roads. If an unfamiliar person were leading the way and someone mistakenly entered this place, the person would be lost. Gu Shijiu never expected to think that there would be such a monster underneath the beautiful plum grove. She was very impressed by the ingenuos but also felt slightly creeped out. The pathway was not an ordinary road, it was full of white bones that were arranged orderly along the way. Chapter 1684 Gu Shijiu already possessed a high spiritual power. After she utilized the eyes of yin-yang technique, she could see a lot of spirits. There were animals and human souls. These grievances floated on a path full of bones and mourned. However, they could not leave. They were stuck here. Earthbound spirits. These were the earthbound spirits. After killing these people or animals with a cruel method, their souls were not destroyed but could only float around their bones. Thus, this underground was full of grievances. Gu Shijiu frowned. She was completely certain that this was the main nest of Mo Zhao. The layout of this place was the same as the underground palace below the volcano, but the style was completely different. It should take a long time to build such a place. Gu Shijiu also glanced at the color of the bones along the way. There were some that were more than 10 years old, and there were others that were much newer that were only 2 years old. There were even bones that just existed in recent days. Di Fuyus glanced around the place and frowned. The layout of this place was like a vast array but he could not identify it. He did not even know which direction he should go. On the other hand, Gu Shijiu seemed to recognize the entire road. Despite being a little worried when she first came in, she was now like a frequent visitor here and continued striding forward. Have you seen this layout before? He could not help but ask her. Gu Shijiu did not look at him but explained, this should be built by Long Fan. It is one of the nests he made with Mo Zhao. Di Fui had seen the 2 other nests made by Long Fan, but the layout here was entirely different from the other 2 that he had seen before. He said, of course I know that this is their main nest, but I am seeing this layout for the first time. How do you know where the core array is in this array? It was rare that he had something he did not know. If it happened in the past, Gu Shijiu would undoubtedly be proud to share this knowledge and tease him while doing so. But now, she was not in the mood. Her voice was indifferent. The layout here is referencing the blood flow of a python. The man behind the scenes wants to collect the blood of little fox, so they must be in the crucial area in the core array. Di Fui remained silent. If it was a human blood flow map, he could recognize it at a glance. However, he could not say the same about a python. When did you study the blood flow map of a python? Gu Shijiu did not answer. If it was not necessary to let him know and she was too lazy to explain it now. When she was studying medicine in the modern day, she often dissected some animals which including pythons. Long Fan was undoubtedly a metamorphosis genius. He could build one of his nests just like an anatomical python. If a person was not familiar with the structure of a python, regardless of how skilled he or she was, they would be trapped. If Di Fui did not come with Gu Shijiu, he could have taken a day and still not find the right core array. The 2 of them had walked for a long way but did not see many people. Although there were only a few people here, all of them were masters. Gu Shijiu had observed in the dark. The lowest level among these people had at least level 8 of spiritual power, and most of them were at level 9. From their conversation, Gu Shijiu got to know that these people were formerly the people under the fake Celestial Masters Wa. After the fake Celestial Masters Wa was defeated, they were brought in by the master of this secret base. Chapter 1685. Gu Shijiu and Di Fuyus were the best two people in the world to save Little Fox. They had taken out everyone they encountered at lightning speed. Those people did not even have time to scream. They could also easily camouflage themselves into groups of people to prevent anyone from noticing them. Thus, no accidents happened to them along the way. Soon, two of them were very close to the core array. At this time, there was an accident. Since the two people did not encounter any trap along the way, they loosened their attention and became careless. Di Fui had accidentally stepped on something, and a big hole suddenly appeared in the ground. Di Fui was not prepared for it, and he fell directly into the hole. Gu Shijiu, who walked in front, heard that something was behind her. When she turned back, she could not see Di Fui anymore, and there was a big hole in the ground that was at least 2 feet in width. Gu Shijiu was stunned for a few seconds and quickly rushed over. She looked down the hole. The hole was bottomless and dark, and there was a faint red flash in the depths of the hole. She saw Di Fui. He did not fall to the end, but his body was stuck on the wall of the hole at about 7 or 8 feet deep. As the light in the hole was dim at best, Gu Shijiu could not see what happened to him. With his skill, if he fell into a hole, he should be able to jump up immediately. Why was he not coming up yet? She did not have time to think about it and teleported down into the hole without hesitation. She immediately teleported to his side. Then, she cuddled him. Only after she went into the hole did she know what was going on. This hole was bizarre. From the top, it seemed to be a few feet wide. However, after Gu Shijiu found that the hole was very narrow. It could only accommodate 2 people. She intended to fall at his side, but after she teleported down, something squeezed her and pushed her directly into his arms. Di Fui was initially facing the wall. As he heard her movement, he could barely turn around and just in time to catch her. This hole was bizarre and very flexible. When Di Fui fell, the walls squeezed him into place, and he could not move at all. After Gu Shijiu fell, the hole could barely accommodate the 2 of them. Therefore, the 2 of them were squeezed like the sardines in a can. There was no gap between the 2 of them. Gu Shijiu was speechless. This was the first time for the both of them to be so physically close after they broke up. It was the first time they cuddled. She could smell the scent from his body, his warmth transmitted to her body just as before. It used to be her favorite place in the world. Her heart began to hurt, and an inexplicable sourness rushed straight up to her nose. She sipped her lips and tried to struggle out of his arms. She did not want to be so close to him. However, she could not get rid of him. As she struggled, the wall of the cave continued to push both of them closer. Even if she was in his arms, she almost could not breathe properly. Her breasts were now pressed against his chest. This posture was unusually intimate. Even when both of them were still together, they were not as close as they were now. Di Fui naturally could feel the softness of her body. The pictures of their loving scenes over the years flashed in his mind. Chapter 1686. The desires of his body that had been forced to sleep now had signs of awakening. After all, both of them had been husband and wife for 8 years. They were very familiar with each other, so they could easily feel the difference when either party had a little movement. Gu Shijiu was so close to him, so naturally, she could sense the movement of his body. Her heart pumped slightly faster, and her eyes were somewhat hot. Her blood was boiling, but then she remembered his betrayal. All the emotions were blown away by the cold wind. She started to struggle out desperately. However, the harder she struggled, the tighter the squeeze was. She was very uncomfortable being squeezed, so she opened her mouth to breathe. "Don't move." Di Fui's hand was on her waist. "This is a trap, and you can't struggle out of it." Di Fui quietly used his spiritual power to forcibly push the wall behind her so that she could have a slight gap to breathe. Do you know how to escape this trap? Gu Shizhou asked. In the dark, her skin was soft and fair. Her red lips were moist, and her eyes were shiny. Di Fui suppressed his desire to kiss her and whispered. Be patient, let me try something. His palm moved behind her inch by inch as he tried to explore the mechanism on the wall. Although it was only the back of his palm that touched her back, Gu Shizhou could still sense the heat of his palm. She was also very uncomfortable being so close to his body. Di Fui suddenly noticed that her breathing was slightly heavy. Her face was red, and she was somewhat stunned. Finally, he recalled something, and his palm went stiff. There was a sensitive point on her back. When both of them were intimate in the past, Di Fui often pinched her at the sensitive point to make her lose her senses. I am sorry. Di Fui whispered, and his palm tried to leave that position. Gu Shizhou did not have any expression on her face, and she did not say anything. However, her red face gradually turned pale. Di Fui did not find the mechanism to switch the trap off. Gu Shizhou took a deep breath and asked, You can shrink your bones, right? I noticed that the mechanism has a slight delay. If you can quickly shrink your bones, I will use the teleportation technique to get us out immediately. This was a good suggestion. Di Fui also agreed with it. Okay. After he agreed to it, his body immediately shrank. When his size was reduced, he instantly started to fall. Gu Shizhou reacted quickly to grab him. At the same time, she teleported out. When the two of them were back on the ground, Gu Shizhou finally heaved a sigh of relief. She unintentionally looked down and saw the miniature version of Di Fui. To make a big gap, Di Fui now looked like a child of 2 to 3 years old. At this moment, he stood on the ground and had not yet recovered to his original appearance. Although Gu Shizhou had been with him for so long, this was the first time she saw him in this appearance. The small body was less than 1 meter tall. He had a pair of big eyes with long eyelashes, a high nose and a small mouth like a porcelain doll. He was just too adorable. In the eyes of Gu Shizhou, he had always been strong and masculine. She never thought that he would look this way as a kid. When she saw it, she felt her heart softened. She wanted to pick him up and kiss him. A beautiful and cute kid could always attract a lot of attention. Almost all people, regardless of age, liked cute and adorable kids. Gu Shizhou was no exception. Although she did not want to see him anymore, she could not resist looking at him now. If in those 8 years she gave birth to a baby, maybe this would be his appearance. Chapter 1687. Gu Shizhou wanted to have a baby before, but unfortunately, she abruptly moved her eyes away from him and turned away. Let's go. She walked forward for a moment and found that he did not keep up. She was afraid that he would fall into another trap, so she turned back once again. She found that he was still standing in the same place and was working hard to grow taller. The scene looked like a fast-forwarded growth of a child. When she looked back, he had grown into a child of 7 or 8 years old. Two of them looked at each other, and it felt awkward. His fair tender skin flushed as he felt very embarrassed. He smiled and a dimple on each of his cheeks could be seen. Di Fui was somewhat bitter by all that was happening. All men would always want to let his wife see his manly and robust side. This was the exact opposite. To make matters worse, this was Di Fui, a god who had always been highly respected. As she was gazing at him, for the first time in his life, he wanted to drill into a hole. Of course, this thought just flashed in his mind for a second and then he calmed down. He accelerated the speed of his growth a little faster, so Gu Shizhou witnessed the whole process of him growing up from a small infant to a small kid, then to a young handsome man and finally back to his original appearance. Of course, when he was back to his appearance, he covered his face with a mask. It took about 5 to 6 minutes. Gu Shizhou seemed to have seen his whole life pass by in those few minutes. She never knew that he used to look so cute as a child. When they were still together, Gu Shizhou once asked him about his childhood. Di Fui told her that he could not recall anything from before he was a teenager. He had no father and no mother. He owned a set of strange skill and slowly survived battle after battle to become the most powerful man in the world. Something did not add up though. It took him only a second to shrink into a kid. Why was it so difficult for him to grow taller now? Also, he was now the Lord and not Di Fui. He could freely transform between two identities in front of her. Gu Shijiu could not help but look at him again. Di Fui seemed to understand her doubts, so he explained, "If I am not wrong, Lan Jingyi has told the person behind the scenes about my identity as the Lord. When she sees me later, she will be calling me by my real name. Therefore, it is better to use the identity of the Lord to save her." It was for the sake of Lan Jingyi. He cared a lot about Lan Jingyi on account of Lan Jingke. Gu Shijiu did not speak but turned and left. It was his own business on which identity he wanted to use. It had nothing to do with her. For now, she only wanted to save Little Fox and to figure out who was the bastard behind the scene was. After a few turns, there was a heart-shaped building in front of them. The building not only looked like a heart but instead seemed like a real one. When they saw it from the outside, the building was expanding and shrinking as if a big heart was pumping. The building was also the home of many blood vessels. There were more blood vessels than spiderwebs. Around the building, there was a trained master standing 3 or 4 meters apart, guarding each exit and entrance. Without saying anything, they knew that it was the central part of this building and also the place where the people behind the scene was located. She listened to the surrounding and it sounded like a dead town. She frowned. Chapter 1688. After she came in, she knew that the guards in this place could not arbitrarily walk around. Each of them had their specific duties and sites to cover. Thus, Gu Shijiu and Di Fui's fake identities could not be used anymore. Hence, they returned to their original appearance and went into stealth mode. At this moment, the 2 doors of the weird building were closed. They could not see anything in it. There were a total of 10 guards, all of which had level 9 or more of spiritual powers. These guards were extremely cautious, just looking at their postures. They were standing in a strategic formation. With this array, if the front was being attacked, the back could counterattack, while if the end was being attacked, the front could counterattack. Thus it was almost impossible to attack them quietly. Gu Shijiu paused to think for a moment. Subconsciously, she wanted to use her teleportation technique to enter the place. She was stopped by Di Fui. "No. There is a wizardry barrier that prevents people from teleporting in." Gu Shijiu took back her hand. She decided to try to create a diversion. She teleported to a building not far from here and started a fire. What she did not expect was that water was sprayed on top of the flame just as it was ignited. This place was quite advanced. When she was about to find another place to start a fire, Di Fui appeared silently behind her. His finger flicked, and there was a flame that burned a building next to them. The water continued to spray above the fire, but this time it failed to set the light off. Gu Shijiu looked at him in surprise. Di Fui only said 2 words, "spiritual fire." The fire naturally alerted the guards who were wandering around. They ran over to this place. By taking advantage of the chaos, Gu Shijiu moved back to the heart-like building and found that the 10 masters were still there. They had no intention to fight the fire. Instead, they stayed even closer to the building and were more alert. It seemed that the people behind the scene had instructed them not to leave the place regardless of the situation. Di Fui continued to set fire at 7 to 8 other places. Screams could be heard from all angles. Although the 10 masters were horrified and panicked, they still did not move. It seemed that even if all the other places were burnt, the 10 people would not move away from their sight. However, this also indicated that the people behind the scene were hidden in this heart-shaped building. He might have already begun to torture Lan Weihu at this time. Gu Shijiu was anxious. At this time, Di Fui had come back to her. He looked at her and then looked at the 10 people. He then calmly said, "There is no other way. Let's break into it." When he was about to make a move, Gu Shijiu said, we should split. Di Fui looked at her with his eyebrow raised. Gu Shijiu continued to explain, once we start to break in, we will attract the attention of the people inside. I am afraid that he might be acting unfavorably to Little Fox. Besides this, it might take at least 10 minutes to settle these 10 masters. By the time we break into the building, the people inside might have escaped. Why don't you attract their attention first, and I will take the opportunity to teleport to the entrance. I will use the cold smashing technique to break through the wizardry barrier that prevents teleportation from stopping the people inside first. After you settle these 10 masters, you go in. The method that was proposed by Gu Shijiu was the best way for now. However, Di Fui was a bit hesitant. It was not difficult for him to settle these 10 people. It was just a matter of how time he would take. However, if she broke in alone, she would need to face the culprits alone. Chapter 1689, It's better for us to settle the outside together. I don't think it will be too late to go in after we settle the 10 of them. Di Fui rejected her proposition. Gu Shijiu frowned. She did not quite understand him. She paused for a while and said, Are you afraid that I will do something unfavorable to Lan Jingyi if I go in earlier? Di Fui was speechless. There were times when she was slow, but sometimes she was amazingly sharp. He did not reply but just stared at her. Gu Shijiu deemed his silence as an acknowledgement. She chuckled. Don't worry, I will never do something unfavorable to her this time. If you don't believe me, I will swear to you. If I don't keep to my word, I will. Before she could finish her sentence, Di Fui interrupted her. His voice was cold. You don't have to swear. I believe you. He turned and rushed out. Gu Zijia's suggestion was undoubtedly the quickest way. 3 minutes later, Di Fui and the 10 people were already fighting intensely, and 2 of them had been killed. As for Gu Shijiu, she had now stood at the entrance of the weird building, raising her hand and breaking the wizardry barrier that surrounded the building. As the wizardry barrier broke, she was shocked by a shrill scream from the inside. She could not recognize the owner of this scream, but the first person that Gu Shijiu thought of was Lan Weihu. Her facial expression changed. She teleported in once she broke into the wizardry barrier. Then, she saw the scene inside. There was a fleshy mermaid lying on the ground, and the ghost-like scream came from the mermaid. Lan Weihu's limbs had been tied up, and she was suspended in the air. Her face was pale. There was a big sharp needle inserted in her chest, and blood came out from the other end of the sharp needle. It was still dripping. A blue-shirted young man was standing in front of her holding a wine cup in his hand. The wine cup was half full, and there was bright red liquid shaking in the container. Apparently, it was the blood from Little Fox's heart. When he turned back, his lips were bloody, and the blood was on his lips. He looked like a vampire. Lan Weihu initially thought that she would die. She was despaired and closed her eyes to bear with the pain. Suddenly, she saw Gu Shijiu, who broke in abruptly. Her eyes lit up and her mouth was ajar. Shijiu, her tears rolled down her face. The blue-shirted young man heard Gu Zijia's entrance. He turned and saw Gu Shijiu, who just broke in. He sighed. Shijiu, you are so fast. You should not get involved in this mess. Gu Shijiu grabbed her fingers and looked at this person. This person looked just like Rong Jialuo. But the temperament. You are Mo Zhao. That blue-shirted young man laughed and softly said, Shijiu, you are indeed very familiar with me. Even if I have changed my appearance, you can still recognize me in a second. Gu Shijiu walked closer to him. Where is Rong Jialuo? The blue-shirted young man stood straight. He is here. Shijiu, this body belongs to him. Can't you recognize it? He laughed. At this moment, he looked entirely different from Rong Jialuo. Gu Shijiu bit her lips. Are you metamorphosing him, or occupying his body? Suddenly, a light flashed in her hand and hit the wine cup in the blue-shirted young man's hand. She put a lot of power into that attack. The blue-shirted young man was not able to dodge it, and the wine cup in his hand had shattered into pieces. The blood inside the container was splashed on the ground. The blue-shirted young man remained silent. There was a flash of light in his eyes. He rushed directly to Lan Weihu, who was hanging there. It was evident that he wanted to take Lan Weihu as hostage. Gu Shijiu had been prepared for it and immediately teleported to Lan Weihu. She released her spiritual power from her palm, and there was a white light that hit the chest of the blue-shirted young man. Mo Zhao immediately receded. He retreated to the side of the blood pool and smiled. Chapter 1690. Mo Zhao smiled and said, "Shijiu, I have always been merciful to you. Do you really want to put me to death? Look, I am even reluctant to kill your friend, I just took a little blood off of her." Gu Shijiu quickly glanced at Little Fox. Although the needle on her chest looked dangerous, it was not fatal. As long as the wound was treated well, she would make a good recovery. After Lan Weihu saw the arrival of Gu Shijiu, she saw hope and looked more energetic. "Shijiu, don't care about me. Do what you need to do." Gu Shijiu flicked her finger and threw Lan Weihu a pill directly into her mouth. "Swallow it." Lan Weihu was very obedient and immediately swallowed the pill. This pill was naturally the best medicine that Gu Shijiu had with her. It not only could save her life, but also stop her bleeding. Save me." The bloody mermaid also whispered. Gu Shijiu did not care about her. She already recognized that the mermaid was Lan Jingyi. Gu Shijiu felt that she was already doing her a favor by not taking the opportunity to kill her, so it was impossible for her to do more than that. Besides, although Lan Jingyi's body looked bloody, those wounds were just injuries on the surface and were not fatal. She was the culprit who caused Little Fox to be so miserable. Thus, she deserved to get punished. What's more, Mo Zhao was still watching her. Hence, she did not have much time to treat her wounds. When she threw the pill to Little Fox, Mo Zhao took the opportunity to attack. He extended his sleeve and a 5-colored light bloomed like a net to cover Gu Shijiu. "Little Shijiu, let's stay together this time." The colorful light was extremely powerful, so Gu Shijiu did not dare to neglect it. She quickly pinched her fingers and countered. She worried that the colorful light from Mo Zhao would impact Little Fox, so she used up her full strength to counterattack. Her palm was warm, and there was a 7-colored ray of light issued from her palm to meet the 5-colored light from Mo Zhao. Bang! There was a loud sound when the two lights collided. Gu Shijiu felt the blood burst in her chest while Mo Zhao retreated several steps. He was shocked. "It's you. What do you mean?" Gu Shijiu did not hesitate but continued to issue another attack. Almost at the same time, there was a loud bang from the direction of the entrance. Someone apparently broke it. Mo Zhao's facial expression changed. He flew out along with the momentum from the attack issued by Gu Shijiu and jumped into the blood pool. There was not even a splash of water, and he had disappeared. Gu Shijiu was stunned. Did he just escape? Gu Shijiu rushed forward and wanted to jump into the blood pool to see. "Don't!" Lan Weihu yelled to discourage such an attempt. "The blood in the pool is poisonous." Gu Shijiu stopped hesitantly, and right at that moment, a white man slid into the room. It was Di Fui. He got rid of the 10 people in 5 minutes and broke in. He was stained with blood on his white clothes, and his silver hair was a little messy. His eyes quickly swept through the room and stopped at Gu Shijiu. Gu Shijiu took a deep breath and quickly told him what happened. Mo Zhao has occupied the body of Rong Jialua. He has just jumped into the blood pool and ran away. Di Fui waved his sleeve and threw something into the blood pool. It dissolved in the pool and disappeared in the blink of an eye. This blood pool was highly toxic and extremely corrosive. Did Mo Zhao jump into the blood pool to escape at the expense of his current body? Or does he have a unique protective body that would allow him to escape from the blood pool? Chapter 1691, Brother Huang, save me. Lan Jingyi almost could not breathe and stretched out her hand to Di Fui. She was still half naked, so she looked somewhat seductive despite the blood stains all over her. Di Fui took a glance and then quickly turned away. He threw a robe to her. We should not stay here for too long. Quickly, leave now. He lifted his sleeves and then issued a wave of water to cover Lan Jingyi's body. He gave her a pill and put her into a wizardry barrier. After he finished treating Lan Jingyi, he looked at Gu Shijiu. Gu Shijiu had already started to crack the 4 thin chains on Lan Weihu. She was an expert in breaking complicated mechanisms, so she would be able to free her friends soon. The only thing that troubled her was that the fine chains had to be pulled out of her shoulder to save her. Little Fox was always afraid of pain, so pulling these chains out was utter torture for her. Gu Shijiu could not bear to see Little Fox hurt. Don't be soft-hearted, Di Fui spoke. If you want to save her, you need to pull out the chains. Gu Shijiu was slightly stunned. She seemed to think of something, and she was looking for anesthetic drugs in her storage bag. Unfortunately, she did not have this kind of medicine in her storage bag at the moment. She could not even find one. She could not help but look at Di Fui and ask, "Do you have a painkiller?" Di Fui frowned. When he was about to open his mouth, Lan Jingyi, who was now hovering around him, cried, "It hurts. Brother Huang, I am in so much pain." Di Fui did not speak but threw a blue pill to Lan Jingyi, who was in the wizardry barrier. Lan Jingyi swallowed it. Gu Shijiu recognized that it was a painkiller which was personally refined by Di Fui. It was more effective than modern anesthetic medicine. If Little Fox could get one of these pills, she would not be in so much pain anymore if she were to pull the chain out of her. She looked at him and waited for him to give her another one. However, she did not expect that Di Fui would disappoint her. I only have one left. Gu Shijiu remained silent. She looked at Lan Jingyi. After Lan Jingyi swallowed the pill, she looked much better. At this moment, Lan Jingyi was looking at her, and she seemed to be a bit smug. Gu Shijiu abruptly removed her eyes from Lan Jingyi and did not want to see her anymore. However, Lan Jingyi did not stop. Brother Huang, I am much better now. Your medicine really works, Di Fui advised her. Quickly concentrate and practice the Shishin formula that I taught you. Okay. Lan Jingyi was an obedient girl in front of him. She looked at Gu Shijiu for a while, then immediately began to practice. Her fishtail was half-curved, and both her palms were closed together. She closed her eyes, and after a while, a faint blue light surrounded her body to complement the white light that Di Fui used to cover her. Gu Zijia's face turned pale. At this moment she could not delay anymore. She pulled the thin chains out of Lan Weihu's body. Although she tried to do so as gently as possible, Lan Weihu still faced unbearable pain. Her face was pale, and there was cold sweat all over it. Nonetheless, Lan Weihu was brave. Her white teeth bit her lip as she tried not to scream. Her lips were so severely bitten that blood was flowing out from them. If the problem were not related to Gu Shijiu, she would not be panicked. But since the person she was healing was Little Fox, even though she knew what to do, she still acted gently. Come on, we need to go as soon as possible. Di Fui urged. Gu Shijiu was frustrated. She interrupted him, since you have already rescued the person you wanted to save, you can leave first. Chapter 1692. Di Fui suddenly raised his hand. There was a light issued from his palm that extracted the thin chains on Lan Weihu. Shua. The 2 thin chains in her shoulders were pulled out, drenched with blood. Lan Weihu screamed, and she fell to the ground. Gu Shijiu was shocked. She tried her best to catch her, but Little Fox had already fainted, and blood was gushing out from her shoulders. Gu Shijiu quickly pressed on the acupuncture point on her shoulder to stop the blood flow. Di Fui handed her a white jade bottle. Apply this on her. This was his best gold-inflicted remedy and was very effective in hemostasis treatment. Gu Shijiu pushed his palm away and rejected his help. I don't need it. Di Fui continued, Gu Shijiu, sometimes you have to think about the big picture and resist acting on your emotion. Gu Shijiu sneered. Don't worry, I won't be acting emotionally when it comes to my friend's safety. Di Fui looked at her pale face and frowned. She needs to have the best gold-inflicted remedy to cure her injuries, otherwise, even though it is not fatal, her skills will be destroyed. Brother Huang, since she doesn't appreciate it. Even if. In her heart, her friend's safety is not as important as her pride. Lan Jingyi said out loud. It seemed that she was not focused on her meditation. Gu Shijiu quickly took out the gold-inflicted remedy she carried with her and applied it on Lan Weihu. Her medicine was very effective. Once she applied it on Lan Weihu, the blood had stopped flowing. The effect was even better than the remedy provided by Di Fui earlier. Lan Jingyi was speechless. Her teasing did not work, and she was a bit resentful. She stared at the gold-inflicted remedy in Gu Zijia's hand. Well, that was also provided by Brother Huang, only Brother Huang can make that high-quality medicine. Gu Shijiu looked at the Di Fui coldly. You can ask your Brother Huang whether this medicine was provided by him. This medicine was made by her recently, and it had nothing to do with Di Fui. It was not true that she was not as good as Di Fui from many aspects. However, at least in pharmaceutical matters, she could definitely match him. Lan Jingyi still wanted to talk, but all of a sudden, the wizardry barrier shook, and she rolled for several rounds. She had a lot of wounds on her body. Therefore, this rolling around had hurt her. She screamed in pain, and her body was trembling. Di Fui coldly said, "If you are very free, I don't mind leaving you here." Lan Jingyi's facial expression changed, and she quickly said, "No. No, I know that I am wrong. Brother Huang, brother, since I am also a Heaven's Gift disciple, please don't leave me here." Di Fui gazed at her and did not speak. Lan Jingyi did not dare to speak again. Heaven's Gift disciple. Was Lan Jingyi also a Heaven's Gift disciple? She was not previously. Was she a new one? Gu Shijiu knew that Lan Jingyi was skilled in the wood element and it was the same as Long Sai. Did Di Fui give the vacancy to Lan Jingyi after removing Long Sai as a Heaven's Gift disciple? Gu Shijiu asked, "Is she a Heaven's Gift disciple? When did it happen?" After all, she was also a tester of Heaven's Gift disciples, so she had the right to know the truth. Di Fui answered casually, "Not long ago." Lan Jingyi looked at Di Fui and then looked at Gu Shijiu. She could not help but interrupt. "It happened 2 months ago. 2 months ago I was injured and could not stop bleeding." Chapter 1693 Brother Huang said that if I have the bloodline as a Heaven's Gift disciple, I could cure this disease. Thus, he assisted me in becoming the wood element Heaven's Gift disciple to get rid of the disease. Gu Zijia's fingertips that in her sleeves had tightly pinched her palm. 2 months ago, was also the time when Long Sai was abolished as a Heaven's Gift disciple. It seemed that after Long Sai was removed, Lan Jingyi took over his position right away. Perhaps Di Fui had had this idea for a long time. He had been planning very well for Lan Jingyi's future. Gu Shijiu had been thinking of a way to help Long Sai restore his identity as Heaven's Gift disciple. She felt that since it could be abolished, there should be a way to recover it too. Therefore, recently she frequently disturbed the firmament stone to ask for suggestions. She also rummaged through all the books that she could access to find the method. It seemed that she was too naive. Di Fui had no bottom line when it came to matters that he cared about. When he cared about a person, he could even violate the rules set by the heavens. Heaven's Gift disciple. Shouldn't it be arranged by the heavens? How could he intervene in the ruling and not be afraid of being condemned? He was the god of this continent, but does that permit him to treat everyone like chess pieces that move according to his plan? The sudden feeling of sadness filled her heart. Her face was ashen. She told herself that she should not let herself be hurt by him anymore. However, her emotions overrode her rationale. Her heart was still in pain after knowing the truth. She stopped talking and quickly wrapped Lan Weihu's wounds. As she was still outraged, her fingers trembled slightly. "You can give her proper treatment once we leave. We should not stay here any longer. Let's quickly get out." Di Fui raised his hand to hold her sleeve. "Use your teleportation technique." Schwa. There was a tearing sound. One corner of Gu Zijia's sleeve was torn. She coldly said, "We should leave separately." She carried Lan Weihu and teleported away in the blink of an eye. Di Fui was speechless. Gu Zijia's teleportation technique was compelling. She teleported straight out of the complicated and strange underground palace. She met Lan Yu near the entrance of the underground palace. Lan Yu followed Gu Zijia's instructions and had been staying outside to coordinate with her. When he saw Gu Shijiu come out together with Lan Weihu, he was relieved and greeted her in a hurry. "How is she?" "She is slightly injured, but it is not too serious." Gu Shijiu heaved a sigh of relief and glanced around. "Where is Yan Chen?" Lan Yu sighed. "He ran out of patience. After you left, he reopened the entrance and went into it." Gu Shijiu was speechless. Lan Weihu's face grew paler. Yan Chen. She wanted to see Yan Chen. At the moment, Lan Yu was not the only one waiting outside. There were also Luo Zhanyu and Li Mengxia as well as Long Sai. These people were summoned by Gu Shijiu using the directed audio spell. She did not want to disturb Long Sai, so she did not call him. Nonetheless, it happened that Long Sai was drinking tea with Luo Zhanyu. Lan Yu wanted to carry Lan Weihu. "Shijiu, let me carry her." Lan Weihu saw Lan Yu's hands were reaching out and her body subconsciously shrank into Gu Zijia's arms and avoided his hands. Lan Yu was speechless. Lan Weihu did not dare to look at the disappointed Lan Yu. After experienced turmoil, she realized that she always liked Yan Chen and wanted to marry him. Lan Yu was good to her, but she did not have any feelings towards him. She just treated him as a friend. She did not want to hide her emotions, so naturally, she did not want to let Lan Yu carry her. Gu Shijiu could understand Lan Weihu's thoughts. Chapter 1694 Gu Shijiu said, "Her injuries still require treatment and should not be delayed. Instructor Long, can you take care of her?" Gu Shijiu then handed Lan Weihu over to Li Mengxia and said, "Mengxia, can you please carry her and leave with Overlord Long?" Li Mengxia would never reject an order from Gu Shijiu. "Sure." She took Lan Weihu over, and Lan Weihu was obedient this time. However, her eyes were constantly focused on the exit. Why did Yan Chen not come out yet? She hoped that he was not trapped inside. Long Sai asked Gu Shijiu, "Are you okay?" "You look very pale." "I'm fine, Instructor Long. I will hand over Weihu to you. Please help to heal her." Long Sai did not speak. Suddenly he raised his hand to check the Gu Zijia's vein. Only after he confirmed that she was not injured did he let go of her hand. "Do not worry, I will be responsible for healing Lan Weihu." Gu Shijiu was relieved. After she got assurance from Long Sai, she knew that Lan Weihu would not have any problems. Lan Yu was trying to say something, but suddenly, the ground under the feet tremored like an earthquake. "I am going to find Yan Chen." Gu Shijiu turned and re-entered the palace. Long Sai frowned. He knew her temperament well, so he did not try to stop her. However, Luo Zhanyu was conflicted, and he wanted to follow her. He was stopped by Long Sai. "You don't have to go. With Zijia's current ability, she can protect herself from any danger. If you go in without knowing the situation, you will drag her down." Luo Zhanyu pondered on Long Sai's words for a second, and he agreed with him. Long Sai sighed. He still believed that Gu Shijiu could come out safely. With his current level of skills, he was useless to her and could only help heal Lan Weihu to give her a reason to smile. Therefore, he left with Li Mengxia who carried Lan Weihu. Lan Yu did not follow. He stood under a plum tree and looked at the plum blossoms. Luo Zhanyu patted his shoulder. "Why aren't you following them?" Lan Yu rubbed his nose and sighed. "I think the person she doesn't want to see right now is me. This is the first time I am being ignored." Luo Zhanyu knew the story between Lan Yu, Lan Weihu, and Yan Chen, so he was quite sympathetic. Although the falling flower has good intention, the water may not accept it. In fact, you should not force her if she doesn't like you. Why would you want to break a couple just for your interest? When you should let go, just do it. Lan Yu glanced at him. Can you let go of your fiancé? If Lan Weihu had not run away, she would already be my wife. The point is that she ran away from you. This proves that she does not put you in her heart. Anyway, you are the king of Blue Fox family, why would you want to force a girl like this? I don't think you have any hidden disease that prevents you from finding a good wife, Lan Yu sneered. You are the one who has a hidden disease. There are a lot of girls who want to marry me. He was just reluctant to accept the truth. The main reason why he wanted to marry Lan Weihu was to follow her father's will. Secondly, it was also helpful to him to improve his skills and spiritual power. Thirdly, she was the national master of the Blue Fox family. If he married her, it meant that he had more power in the Blue Fox family. Fourthly, he also liked Little Fox. He thought that she was cute and quite compatible to be his wife. Of course, Lan Yu's love for Lan Weihu was far less than Yan Chen's. He would never sacrifice his life for Lan Weihu. Chapter 1695. All of a sudden, the ground shook vigorously again. It felt as though it was a magnitude 9 earthquake. A few of them were not alert to the sudden change, hence, they almost fell. Luckily, all of them were elites and quickly rose up in midair when they noticed something was wrong. The ground collapsed and cracked as the entire plum forest collapsed. Dust was flying up to the sky, and the loud collapse made everyone temporarily speechless. The scene on the ground looked like an apocalypse. Luo Zania's facial expression immediately changed as he witnessed the scenes below. Shizhou was still in the underground palace. He turned around and was about to rush down to the ground, but Lan Yu managed to pull him back. You can't go. You'll be buried alive in there. I need to save my sister. Luo Zhanyu was panicked as he tried to struggle out from Lan Yu's grasp. Lan Yu's power had almost recovered, and his external ability was about the same as Luo Zanius. Therefore, Luo Zhanyu could not escape. She has already achieved a level 10 spiritual power, she should be able to teleport out even if she is buried underground. However, you will die if you go now. Yan Chen was stubborn and look what happened. Do you want to give Shizhou another problem? Luo Zhanyu was unhappy that Lan Yu lectured him. Although he knew that what Lan Yu said was relevant, that was his sister, he really could not calm himself in such a short time. Suddenly, a white light flashed across the dust with 2 people engulfed inside who shot up to the sky. Since the dust was too thick, no one could see who those 2 people were. Shizhou! Luo Zhanyu screamed as he rushed over to check. However, when he arrived somewhere nearby, he realized that was not Gu Shizhou but Di Fui and Lan Jingyi. The 2 of them looked fine. Di Fui's robe was still neat and clean while Lan Jingyi was floating in a wizardry barrier behind him while she meditated. Luo Zhanyu was stunned. He grunted, Di Fui, have you seen Shizhou? Di Fui frowned. I thought she had escaped with Lan Weihu. Did you not see her? Her teleportation technique was the fastest way out of the underground palace, Di Fui could not even catch up with her. She had come out with Lan Weihu, however, Yan Chen was still in the underground palace. He had gone in after you because he was worried. He didn't come out, hence, Shizhou passed Lan Weihu to Overlord Long and then went in again to find Yan Chen. However, she appears to be missing. Di Fui's expression changed slightly because he knew how dangerous it was in the underground palace as he just escaped from there. The quake was not a natural disaster but a man-made disaster. It was Mo Zhao who initiated the destruction mechanism after he escaped. All the blood vessels burst and the blood from the blood vessels were corrosive. When he escaped, he witnessed all the guards who did not manage to escape turn into ashes as the poisonous blood spilled onto them. The explosion of the blood vessels covered all directions without missing any single spot. Thus, there was no place for them to hide. Di Fui might have suffered the same fate if he did not manage to initiate the protection array and rush out in time. Gu Shizhou could perform teleportation, hence, she would probably teleport out even if she could not find Yan Chen, right? She knew it was dangerous, so she probably would not risk her life this way. Perhaps, she had teleported tens of miles away, hence, it was normal if no one could see her. Strangely, Di Fui was a little panicked. He took a deep breath and retrieved the jade tablet which he always used to contact her. He dialed and waited for her to answer. However, the jade tablet was unresponsive after a few blinks and then turned back to its original appearance. Di Fui's concern could be seen all over his face, and the fingers which he used to hold the tablet turned pale. Chapter 1696. There were only two possibilities in Di Fui's mind. 1. She was entering a hazardous place, and she switched off the jade tablet because she was scared that she would be distracted. 2. The jade tablet might be damaged. Which one was it then? He remembered that her jade tablet was on when they both went in together. It did not make sense for her to switch off the jade tablet just because she needed to save Yan Chen. Was it the second possibility? He tried very hard to suppress his anxiousness and looked at Luo Zhanyu. Could you try to contact her with your directed audio spell? Luo Zhania's eyes were already red. I've tried but failed. In other words, her other directed audio spell was also switched off or completely damaged. Suddenly, Lan Yu screamed in excitement. Hey, I got hold of Yan Chen. Both Luo Zhanyu and Di Fui's eyes sparkled as they looked at Lan Yu. Di Fui took the directed audio spell from Lan Yu's hand. Yan Chen, where's Shizhou? Yan Chen paused for a second. I thought she had gone out to meet you. She just left right after she saved me. I thought she would go and meet you. In fact, Yan Chen was in danger not long after he rushed in, and he almost fell into a sea of blood after triggering a mechanism. Gu Shizhou managed to contact him at the critical moment and successfully saved him with her teleportation. Since Yan Chen knew Lan Weihu was safe, he did not want to stay any longer. When he was about to go out with Gu Shizhou, the entire palace was on the brink of collapse. Gu Shizhou was very fast, hence, she immediately teleported away with Yan Chen. Due to her panicked nature, she teleported 50 miles away with Yan Chen. Later, she asked Yan Chen to find Lan Weihu in Long Sai's place as she still had something urgent to follow up. After that, she disappeared. Yan Chen missed Little Fox very much, hence, he quickly contacted Long Sai. After getting his location, he immediately rushed over. While he was on his journey to meet Lan Weihu, he got a call from Lan Yu, and only then did he know that Gu Shizhou did not meet up with Lan Yu and the rest. Where would she go? Would she go to after Mo Zhao right away? Di Fui just got to know from Lan Jingyi that Rong Jialua was the main culprit. However, he addressed himself as though he was a lord while Gu Shizhou referred to him as Mo Zhao. If Di Fui was not mistaken, it seemed that Rong Jialua had been completely possessed by Mo Zhao. It made sense that the Blood Underground Palace was built by Mo Zhao. Although Di Fui had never met Mo Zhao in person, he knew his kung fu quite well. Even if Mo Zhao had not fully recovered, an omen who had lived for a few thousand years was definitely not someone who could be easily defeated by a little girl like Gu Shizhou who only had a few decades of power. It was extremely dangerous for her to fight him alone. Perhaps, there was not even a small chance for her to win. That was the first time Di Fui was so panicked that his fingers trembled in his sleeves. Lan Jingyi, who was engulfed in the wizardry barrier behind him, certainly sensed his emotion. She opened her eyes. Brother Huang, don't worry. She knows teleportation, she would be able to escape if she could not fight him. She could run very fast earlier, and we couldn't even catch up with her. It was terrible of her not to inform us after she came out. I think she is just trying to make everyone worry about her by hiding in somewhere. Before she could finish talking, a loud scream was heard. The wizardry barrier that carried Lan Jingyi cracked, and she fell helplessly from midair. Chapter 1697. How could Lan Jingyi survive if she falls in the sea of blood? Fortunately, a hand pulled her back, and she slumped into Lan Yu's embrace. Lan Yu was slow to react as he saw the mermaid fall from midair. He was lucky that she did not fall directly on top of him. He quickly pulled her collar and dragged her up to the ground. Unfortunately, Lan Jingyi's clothes ripped during the fall. She had only been given a robe from Di Fui for her to cover her pubic regions. Although the robe was quite big, Lan Yu unintentionally opened her top when he pulled her up. To make matters worse, her body slipped out from the robe and continued to fall. Lan Jingyi screamed again. Fortunately, Lan Yu was very quick this time, hence, he managed to grab hold of her. However, he was stunned and quickly took a closer look because he touched something slippery. He had grabbed her fishtail as she hung upside down. It would only be a small matter if she hung upside down. However, she was naked. Lan Jingyi could not stop struggling because she was embarrassed and angry. Let go. Let go of me, you jerk. A gentleman should not look at something that did not belong to him and should not act impolitely as well. Lan Yu had his morals and standards and was shocked to be called a jerk. Well, he decided to close his eyes and let go of Jan Jingyi. Therefore, Lan Jingyi fell again. In her panicked state, she finally formed a silk coil and hooked it on Lan Yu's waist. She then pulled forcefully and slumped into Lan Yu's embrace as she got up. Lan Yu was standing as straight as a pine tree to avoid any possible accusation again. Young lady, please behave yourself and don't simply submit yourself to me. The multiple falls had caused Lan Jingyi's wounds to tear open again. A lot of blood dripped from her wounds, and she almost fainted from the pain. Despite being in pain, she grabbed onto Lan Yu's belt because she was afraid to fall again. She begged with a trembling voice, save me. Lan Jingyi was not a very talented person, however, Di Fui made many pills with a secret recipe for her so that her kung fu would quickly upgrade. She was now at a level 9 spiritual power. Even though she achieved a level 9 spiritual power, her kung fu was rather lousy. As she was severely injured now, she could not even perform the flying magic technique and had to depend on someone else to take the lead. Otherwise, she would have fallen into the underground palace and turned into a puddle of water. To stay alive, she had to leave her image aside and grab onto Lan Yu. When she looked around again, she realized Di Fui was gone. He has gone to find Gu Shijiu. Lan Jingyi was sad and quite mad too. Lan Yu did not push her down because Di Fui left a reminder to him before he left. Try to treat her wounds and keep her alive. Lan Yu did not have the guts to disobey Celestial Master's order, hence, he had to keep her alive. However, it was really inappropriate or rather indecent for a mermaid to hang on his belt. Lan Yu truly believed that his image was valuable and he did not want to embarrass himself. Therefore, he threw a dress to her. Young lady, it's embarrassing to run away naked. Could you put on that dress? Oh right. Don't throw your tantrum on me, or else I'll probably kick you off if I'm not happy. Lan Jingyi remained silent. Her face was flushed, and she did not dare to say anything else. Lan Yu could not form a wizardry barrier to carry her, and he was not willing to carry her as well. Thus, he pondered. Chapter 1698. Lan Yu could not form a wizardry barrier to carry her, and he did not want to do so anyway. In the end, he retrieved a band out of nowhere and tied it on her waist. Hence, he brought her along whenever he flew, as if he was pulling a kite. When he was flying in the air, he even kindly reminded her, "Miss, it's inappropriate for a man and a lady to have physical contact. Thus, this is the only way I can bring you along. Don't ever break the band. Otherwise, I might not be able to save you in time." The wind up above the sky was as cold as a blade. Lan Jingyi felt as though she was almost torn apart by the chilly breeze. That was the first time she had committed such a great sin, however, she had no way to escape. She had no guts to break the band but struggled to hold it too. She wanted to cry, but she could not. Only cold sweat rolled down from her forehead like pearls. She felt depressed and frightened as she realized she was nothing in Huang Tu's heart. She was always someone easily replaceable, and she had never walked into his heart. But why would he suddenly treat her nicely over the past few months after having neglected her for several years? He even healed her chronic illness and made pills for her. He elected her be a Heaven's Gift disciple and also made a few of her other small dreams came true. She thought her efforts finally paid off. She thought he would finally see her. However, she had never imagined that she would return to her original state today. When Gu Shijiu was missing, he immediately left her, and he did not even care about her injuries. Gu Shijiu had gone missing. Di Fui has used all his tricks and resources to find her, but nothing worked. Di Fui had also searched the palace. The royal servants had no idea what was happening but were only aware that their emperor had a private visit outside the palace. However, none of them knew when he would return. Every single spot in the palace had been searched by Di Fui, but he did not find any clues about Gu Shijiu and Mo Zhao. But suddenly, he made a small discovery. There was a secret passage inside the emperor's bedroom that led to the secret underground blood palace under the plum forest. When Di Fui entered the secret passage, the entire place was filled with poisonous blood and the walkways were corroded. In fact, Mu Feng and the other messengers were confused. The Lord hardly asked about Miss Gu these days, and they hardly had any interaction even when they bumped into each other for some work. They thought the Lord had let go of Miss Gu and treated her as his normal subordinate. However, when she had gone missing, the Lord looked for her crazily as though he had lost his souls. For 3 days, the Lord had not eaten or taken a sip of water. He never stopped looking her. However, no one knew where Gu Shijiu had gone. They had looked everywhere but still could not find her. Di Fui entered the star-gazing observatory room. He was looking at the blinking stars up above the sky. He was completely focused on the new king star and his facial expression changed. The bright new star suddenly dimmed. It looked to be tangled with the red devil star and both were about to fall. She really went to find Mo Zhao. He had no idea what strategy she has used, but it appears as though she has chosen to die with Mo Zhao. Gu Shijiu, don't do something silly, please. Gu Shijiu, your life is way more important than his. Please, don't give up. Di Fui took a leap and rushed towards certain direction. This time, both of the stars had shown their exact location. Hopefully he could make it in time and nothing would have happened to her. Chapter 1699. Nothing serious could happen to her, right? Gu Shijiu was the new lord of this world, how could she fall? Shijiu, wait for me, little Shijiu, you're obsessed with me, huh? Did you fall for me? Otherwise, why would you follow me all the way here? There was a frozen sea at the most northern region in the continent, and there was also an ice land on that frozen sea. There was an abandoned land deep inside the ice land that was occupied by certain ferocious beasts which were similar to penguins and polar bears. The snowflakes were as big as a straw mat, and the entire land was covered by ice mountains and glaciers. The place looked like the most rural area at the North Pole with a vile environment and bad weather. It was not a good place for spiritual growth because the area lacked spiritual energy. Thus, no one would come here even if they had all the time in the world. Yet strangely, inside a bottomless ice gap on the ice land, a magnetic and flirtatious voice was heard. Mo Zhao, I really have an obsession. I am obsessed with you because I want to kill you. An icy voice could be heard in response. Sigh, it's really sad. The man sighed. He then added 2 sentences from a poem, I gave my sincere heart to a beautiful lady, however, the beautiful lady did not appreciate it. There was an ice cave at the bottom of the ice, and a river flowed within it. Countless icicles filled the stream of water. It shone in blue, and the chill could freeze someone to death. Gu Shijiu was standing on an icicle while Mo Zhao stood on another icicle opposite her. Mo Zhao looked passionate as he glimpsed at Gu Shijiu with his narrowed eyes, but his gaze looked depressed after he read the 2 sentences. It was as though he really got hurt in a relationship. Gu Shijiu slightly pursed her lips. Apparently, she did not buy his passion. In fact, Mo Zhao was not supposed to know the poem. However, he had worked with Long Fan before, and Long Fan was a typical boastful man who showed off his talents by reading some poems in front of Mo Zhao. Mo Zhao sighed and added, honestly, I'm really curious how you found me. Did you follow me all the way? I was sure to clear off any traces of me, and even Di Fui would not be able to find me. So how did you manage to find me? Mo Zhao took the opportunity to escape using the ground drilling technique after he destroyed his underground palace. He had gotten hold of the two items he wanted, which was the mermaid's tears and the fresh blood from the blue fox. He would completely recover once he ate those two things and converted its energy. He would only need 3 days and nights of practice and meditation. This was why Mo Zhao decided to run away instead of battle them head-on. He wanted to speed up his recovery progress first. He did not expect that regardless of where he escaped to, Gu Shijiu would find him. In the beginning, he did think of catching Gu Shijiu before running away. However, Gu Shijiu was very smart and tricky. She immediately disappeared with her teleportation technique every time he saw her, and she would then disturb him again with a sneak attack once he began to meditate. That drove him nuts. Mo Zhao was helpless. He tried many different ways to escape, but Gu Shijiu always found him. Throughout the process of escaping and chasing one another, both of them accidentally ran into this abandoned ice land and coincidentally bumped into each other at the bottom of an ice cap. Gu Shijiu decided to give her all to kill him. She would not give up until he dies. However, since Mo Zhao had swallowed the blood of a blue fox more than 3 days ago, the blood would lose its effect since he did not manage to meditate. Mo Zhao was extremely frustrated. Thus, he was no longer happy even when he saw Gu Shijiu. Instead, he felt extremely annoyed and intended to kill her. Chapter 1700. Mo Zhao was also very familiar with astrology, even though his knowledge was not as broad as Di Fuyus. He knew the old king star would fall soon and that a new king star would be born within this period. However, if the omen could kill the new king star before it matures, then the star of the omen would replace the new king star and become the new lord of the world. Of course, the people would need to worship the devil by then, and the structure of the continent would be changed entirely. He had this intention a long time ago, hence, he was waiting for the new king star to look for him because the new king star would be weak and easy to be killed at an earlier stage. Mo Zhao always kept an eye on the stars. However, the old king star always looked bright, and it did not seem to be falling anytime soon. Therefore, he thought the new king star would not be born that soon, at least not within the upcoming 60 years. Thus, he kept a very low profile and got himself hidden to avoid the Lord's suspicion. Unfortunately, when he realized that the new king star had already been born, it was already very bright and strong. Apparently, the old king star had done something to manipulate its growth. That was the reason it was very dim among the other stars before it reached its maturity. Hence, Mo Zhao missed the opportunity. Although Mo Zhao noticed the new king star in the sky, he could not identify who it belonged to. He could not even tell the exact location of the new king star, hence, he had no way to kill his opponent and gain control of the continent. Initially, he planned to find him or her after he completely recovered. However, he was surprised to see the ray of 7 colored lights when Gu Shijiu attacked him. That was the light specially emitted by the king star of the world. She was the new king star which he could not find. He honestly felt that God must be joking with him because the only woman he loved was the new king star he always wanted to kill. He was trying to figure out what he would do while he kept running away from her. He initially thought that he should marry the new king star and then destroy all her kung fu. He wanted her to be his empress to watch him conquer the world and celebrate his glory. However, he seemed to have given up on this idea now. He could always find a better woman in the future. However, there was only one world, hence, he could only sacrifice her for his hegemony. At most, he would keep her souls and engrave his seal of the devil on her souls. In this case, she could never be a deity even if she resurrects in the future. As he narrowed his eyes, his fingers slowly clenched in his sleeves while he was staring at her. In fact, he was really curious about Gu Zijia's tracking ability. How could it be so amazing? Gu Shijiu was staring back at him. She knew he had the intention to kill her. Instead of being fearful, she smiled. It was finally time for their final battle. She too had been waiting for this moment. Gu Shijiu was in a good mood, thus, she did not mind answering Mo Zhao. Actually, I've suspected you way too long ago. So, I've done something to your body. Unless you're willing to abandon your body, you should just stop running away because it'll find you no matter where you go. Mo Zhao was speechless. He sighed before answering, I personally think I've hidden myself very well, even Di Fui couldn't find me. How did you suspect me so early? He was always good at acting and had completely possessed Rong Jialuo's body. He ate Rong Jialuo's souls, and now he owned all of his memories. Chapter 1701. Since he had successfully taken over Rong Jialuo's identity, how did Gu Shizhou unravel his secret? Gu Shizhou pinched her now pale red lips and answered calmly, Rong Jialuo was once my friend. Gu Shizhou knew her friends well enough, and that included Rong Jialuo. One's temperament might differ due to the change in his or her social status. One's personality, however, would not change to an undistinguishable extent. Although he always put on his grim expression, Rong Jialuo was naturally a little shy and introverted. For the past few months, Rong Jialuo behaved somewhat similarly, with a lack of amiability, but Gu Shizhou could still notice his mild sense of evilness through his eyes. That was when she started to suspect his true identity. Before this, she even tried to perform several tests on him secretly, but the results remained normal, which led her to assume that she overthought the whole situation. However, for the sake of his safety, she would perform some spells on Rong Jialuo every time she visited the palace to expiate the sins of the sorrowful souls. Rong Jialuo was the kind of person with the ability to bring troubles to himself. With or without his attachment with Mo Zhao, she would still look after him in secret. Even though he was still Rong Jialuo, it would be best for her to know where to find him if one day he was unfortunately kidnapped by Mo Zhao. Mo Zhao was a smart man. He understood the underlying meaning of Gu Zijia's answer. Shizhou, you are so kind to Rong Jialuo. I was once your friend, too, but why didn't you look after me like you did to him? He sighed. Gu Shizhou responded with a smirk, I once treated you as a friend, but that was all in the past. Ever since he became Mo Zhao, he had been doing so many evil deeds that went against all moral codes and humanity. How could she treat him as a friend like before? Mo Zhao looked down and heaved a long sigh. However, you are still a friend to me. Think about it. Ever since we met, I have been treating you well and have never done anything to harm you. When you were in trouble, I was the one who helped you. I would not do anything to harm any of your friends, otherwise little Fox would be long dead. Shizhou, you have to face your conscience. I have always been so kind to you, but you never gave me any chances. You destroyed several underground palaces of mine and injured me so severely for many times. Right now, you are even trying to exterminate me. Think about it with your conscience. Is this right? Do I deserve this? He had a gift of rare eloquence. His voice was gentle yet attractive, like a warm stream that flowed smoothly into Gu Zijia's heart. While he talked, he focused his eyes so intensely with profound affection. He tried to make her fall for him. His eyes shone brightly, like a gleam of warm moonlight shrouding the land. Gu Shizhou remained silent and stared at him blankly without any expression. Mo Zhao tried harder. He took another step closer to her and asked, Shizhou, will you let me go? Gu Shizhou pursed her lips in return. What about the real Rong Jialuo? Where is he? Mo Zhao sighed. Am I not Rong Jialuo? You are not. You are Rong Che. The 8th prince, Rong Jialuo, treated you so well back in the day. How could you do something so evil to him? Shizhou, he was nice to me, so I refused to lay my murderous hand on him. Didn't you know? He used to feel a strong sense of inferiority in front of you for always putting you in trouble. He wanted to become stronger, so he could finally fight alongside you. He wanted to be the man who could protect you, but his talent was nothing remarkable. He could never make it past level 9 with his own capability, nor could he become stronger than you. He was very sad and disappointed. Mo Zhao explained softly. So you took the opportunity to lure him into your vicious plan and made him agree to the blood agreement? For you to own his body? Mo Zhao laughed. You cannot say that I lured him. He agreed willingly. I promised to keep his conscience. Chapter 1702, Rong Jialuo has been very nice to me. I will certainly not harm him. As you can see right now, we have come together as one. Mo Zhao continued. I believe it is not his conscience that you kept, but his memory. Did you engulf his souls as a whole? Gu Shijiu continued. Mo Zhao rubbed his nose before answering. It is not nice for you to say that I swallowed his souls. I prefer to call it a union of our souls. Gu Shijiu could not suppress the sadness in her eyes. She could almost understand why Mo Zhao chose to attach his soul to Rong Jialuo's body. When Mo Zhao was still Rong Che, both of them had spent many years together, enough for Mo Zhao to understand Rong Jialuo, which made it easier for him to manipulate his flaws. Moreover, Rong Che and Rong Jialuo were brothers who shared the same bloodline. Mo Zhao had been using Rong Chi's body long enough to adapt to the Rong bloodline. Therefore, Rong Jialuo was a good choice that would make the reattachment easier for him. Rong Jialuo was, after all, an ordinary man in his 20s, so he was not a well-matched adversary for Mo Zhao, who had been cultivating his vital energy for thousands of years. Once Mo Zhao took over the body, Rong Jialuo's soul would not be spared. It seemed like Rong Jialuo would never come back again. He had truly become Mo Zhao. Hence, Gu Shijiu was devastated by the realization. Rong Jialuo had always been very kind to her. Without Mo Zhao, Rong Jialuo could be an excellent ruler of the Feixing kingdom with a good name for posterity. Unfortunately, his encounter with Mo Zhao made it all impossible. Mo Zhao had been controlling him for all his life. Before, Gu Shijiu was still unable to overcome certain misgivings, but she changed her mind. There would be no scruple for her anymore. She looked at Mo Zhao fixedly. There is one more thing that I do not understand. Say it. You know I do not have the heart to reject you. In the secret blood palace, what did you mean when you said you did not expect it to be me? Gu Shijiu knew that there would be some underlying meaning in his words. Mo Zhao returned her question with a smile. Shijiu, can you read the star chart? Gu Shijiu was perplexed, as she did not understand what it had to do with the star chart. A flashback suddenly occurred to her. She remembered Di Fui once showed her the astrological chart, which among many stars, she found the biggest star that represented Di Fui, but failed to find the star for her own. Di Fui did not point it out to her either. She thought that she must be too insignificant to be on the chart, so she did not question any further. Mo Zhao's sudden question made her rethink the entire situation. Did Mo Zhao recognize her star from the star chart? She wondered if she had already acquired a position among the stars with her present capability, but she had no idea which one. The real star chart could only be revealed at certain locations. The ordinary night sky left no trace of each star's position. She answered with another question instead, what difference would it make if I can or cannot read it? Mo Zhao kept his eyes on her smilingly. He tried to find some clues from her expression. Although she managed to skip the question, he was sure to assume that she was still unaware of her true identity from the way she responded. It would be fun for Mo Zhao. Under normal circumstances, the old King's Star would protect the new King's Star as part of his or her obligation. He would keep the heir safe when necessary and teach the new King's Star the ability to guard the world by continuing the work of the predecessor. The old King's Star should never watch over the new King's Star so extensively to the point of going against God's will. However, he could tell that the old King's Star had done a lot for her from the star chart. The level of commitment had gone way beyond the relationship between a predecessor and an heir. Chapter 1703 Logically speaking, the old King's Star should have passed the stargazing ability to the new King's Star. However, she appeared to know nothing about it. It seemed that the former King's Star did not wish for the incoming King's Star to find out the truth about their change of power. He genuinely cared for her, which was something very unusual. There was only one possibility. The old and new King's Stars must be lovers, who swore to love as long as they both should live. The old King's Star must be trying to avoid breaking her heart by not telling her the truth of his doom. The old King's Star would use any reasons, even with his betrayal, to cause them to split before his final days. He would break her heart entirely so she was no longer concerned about his existence. He would then hide from the world. It was normal for him to disappear for a few years, even for a few decades. If everything had been properly arranged, the new King Star would never find out the truth about the death of the old King Star. His follower would take his form and make an occasional appearance once every few years, so the world would still think that he was still alive. After the heartbreak, the new King Star would never ask anything about the old King Star ever again. She would never find out about his death. Mo Zhao thought to himself. The only one that was entangled with Gu Shizhou was Di Fui. It was normal for Di Fui to look after Gu Shizhou, but not the Lord, unless the Lord was indeed Di Fui. Di Fui could be the embodiment of the Lord. Mo Zhao was delighted at this sudden realization. He had heard about the breakup between Gu Shizhou and Di Fui. Before this, he did not quite understand why their relationship would end up in ruins, given that both of them were so madly in love, so much so that they would die for one another. He finally understood it all. That was how it was. Di Fui must have been scheming his plan for quite a while. He turned to look at Gu Shizhou with an intense gaze and questioned her. Di Fui is the Lord, right? Gu Shizhou was utterly surprised, but she gave nothing away on her face. What nonsense are you talking about? She did not know how he came up with the assumption. Mo Zhao looked away and smiled scornfully. He did not intend to answer Gu Zijia's confusion. If I knew better that they were the same man, I should have tortured him to death while he was still in my underground palace. It was a great remorse. Mo Zhao repented of his lost opportunities so immensely. He did not realize that the Lord was once in his hand, but he let him escape so easily. Mo Zhao gave Gu Shizhou a look so full of pity. He wondered how she would react when she found out about the truth. Would she be mentally devastated? He decided to wait until Di Fui's death before uncovering the painful truth. Her expressions would be fascinating. Di Fui's painstaking effort would be all wasted away. He would take it as a revenge for all the suppression that he had to suffer for so many years. The idea sounded very interesting. Mo Zhao's mind started to be bombarded with many more crazy ideas. He no longer wanted to murder Gu Shizhou, at least for now. He would wait until the day she found out about the truth. The urge to kill Gu Shizhou started to fade. He should take it easy and wait for the death of the old King Star before he started to take any action. As long as Lan Weihu was still alive, he could still extract the blood from her heart. Also, he still had some mermaid tears left. For the past few days, he had to bustle in and out all because of Gu Shizhou. She was very excellent in causing him all sorts of disturbances. All he needed was a quiet place to practice his kung fu and cultivate his vital energy, so he had to keep running away from her. Chapter 1704. 1704. Mo Zhao had come round to this idea now, so there was no need for him to rush into his practice. He had taken over Rong Jialuo's body, all that was left was for him to recover fully. Furthermore, Gu Shizhou was no match to him if he wanted to hurt her right now. It would take him half a day to defeat her. He would then wait for the death of Di Fui before taking any actions. While he was still chatting with Gu Shizhou, he would walk around between the cracks of the ice. His steps appeared to be random, but he was trying to set up a strategy to seal the place so that there was no place she could run. Gu Shizhou watched cautiously as he continued to walk around. He trod the area from end to end, so she followed his steps. She was a little frustrated. From time to time, she would give the icicles on the banks a kick. Although the ice towers were unusually strong, Gu Zijia's strength was enough to kick them off their ground. Some of them were cheekily aimed at Mo Zhao. Certainly, Mo Zhao would not allow himself to be hit by these ice towers. He would either flip the ice away with his sleeve or swiftly avoid them. He remained untouched. Gu Shizhou could tell that there was an underlying meaning in Mo Zhao's words, but she could not figure out the hidden message. She no longer wanted to make any assumptions. Making any assumptions was exhausting, and Gu Shizhou was too tired to think about it at the moment. She only had one goal, which was to kill Mo Zhao. She needed revenge on behalf of Little Fox, Rong Jialua, the innocent people he had hurt, and also herself. She had to destroy the scourge of mass destruction. She was not afraid to die in a fight with him. She was also devising a strategy which would cause both of them to be either severely injured or dead. They continued to talk, but Mo Zhao was a very careful person. He did not let any of his thoughts slip out of his mouth. Gu Shijiu only responded faintly, so he would not find out anything from her words. She was an expert in array formation, so she could see that Mo Zhao was secretly planning his strategy. He must be desperate to catch her or even kill her. She smirked, for it was still uncertain who would be dead at the end. She knew that her kung fu was no match to Mo Zhao's, but she had her ways. She learned a strategy from an exorcist that she met in her previous life. It was a plan that could be the ultimate kill. However, the plan must come with a great price. Unless it were really necessary, no one would execute the plan. Now was the time. It was finally time for her to carry out the strategy. Although Mo Zhao was also an expert in array formation, his knowledge in that particular strategy was not as good as hers. He took a stroll at the banks for nearly half an hour. Finally, he came to a stop and looked at Gu Shijiu fixedly, who was still standing opposite him. Gu Shijiu raised her head and their eyes met. Mo Zhao gave her a gentle smile, but it somehow looked devilish. "Shijiu, I see that you like to follow my footsteps. Stop running away, will you?" Gu Shijiu frowned but remained silent. Mo Zhao took a swift leap and landed next to her. He had already secured a wizardry barrier in all the ice cracks. Hence, her teleportation technique within the barrier would not work. She could no longer escape. The placement of the wizardry barrier was very physically draining, especially to Mo Zhao's spiritual power. With the execution of the plan, he would need at least half a month of recovery to begin his practice again. He was resigned to the fact that he would stop his practice for a little while. Otherwise, he would not perform the wizardry barrier at this critical point. He was very determined to get Gu Shijiu this time. Certainly, he had never paid any attention to her kung fu capability. He was aware that her kung fu was good, but nothing compared to his standard. If they had to fight, she would not be able to resist more than 70 to 80 of his martial styles. Gu Shijiu smiled charmingly. "You'd better not run away this time. Whoever runs is a coward. Let's put an end to this." Chapter 1705, 1705. Mo Zhao did not expect Gu Shijiu to be so direct toward him. Soon, he laughed. "All right. Whoever runs is a coward. Shijiu, I will make sure you know my strength." He had decided to take her down forcibly this time by making her his woman. If he could never get her heart, he could at least have her body. He wanted to see her suffer in tears. He would rather have her destroyed if he could not have her. He opened up his palm to summon his weapon. A blood-red sword formed immediately in his hand. The edge of his sword was flaming, but its effect was cold. Immediately after its emergence, there came a loud, wailing scream from its ferocious evil spirits. The glacier, which had been actively streaming for tens of thousands of years, froze immediately when the sword appeared. The coldness was unbearable, as though piercing through Gu Zijia's skin. Gu Shijiu flipped the corner of her sleeves and summoned a flexible rope in her hand. It was a rope of 7-colored gleam and was as soft and nimble as a whip. Her hand gestured a little, and the flexible weapon straightened up instantly. The body of the rope was shimmering with many colors. It was quite majestic. She used to have an arsenal of great weapons from Di Fui. However, since she broke up with Di Fui, she sent all the things back to him. She even stopped using all the kung fu techniques that he taught her. She used the power of her soul to create a flexible rope. It immediately surrounded the entire chilly environment with a warm halo. Under the influence of the 7-colored flexible rope, beautiful glowing rays started to shine in all directions on the ice, forming a bright and dazzling view. Mo Zhao looked at the presentation of her flexible rope and was perplexed. He did not expect Gu Shijiu to use this as her weapon. As far as he was concerned, she was better with swords. "Your weapon is quite fancy. Did Di Fui give it to you?" Gu Shijiu responded scornfully, it looks fancy, but is lethal enough to kill you. With a stretch, the flexible rope extended towards Mo Zhao. Mo Zhao laughed out loud despite the impending danger. All right, I would like to see how this soft weapon is going to kill me. The sword used by Mo Zhao was an excellent weapon from ancient evil times. There was nothing that it could not cut through. It could effortlessly destroy a sword that was made of diamond and shatter it into pieces. More importantly, many sorrowful evil spirits had been confined by the power of the sword. In every movement of the sword, the evil spirits further enhanced the strength of the sword, making it powerful enough to kill both gods and celestial beings. He had been keeping the sword for his battle against the Lord, now he had to use it against Gu Shijiu instead. If the sword hit Gu Shijiu, she would be immediately frozen into an ice cube and Mo Zhao could finally do anything to her as he pleased. The tip of the sword and the rope met in a clash and Mo Zhao was very hopeful that the power of his evil spirits could affect Gu Zijia's body through the flexible rope, thus freezing every inch of her limbs. To his surprise, the flexible rope shone out a gleam of powerful seven-colored rays that immediately purified the grievance of the bloody red evil spirits. He was utterly surprised and withdrew his sword. A few sorrowful souls had just been expiated from their grief through the gleam of the seven-colored ray. You. He looked at her with an utter surprise. What kind of kung fu is that? He had never seen anything like it. The one that can kill you. Gu Zijia's flexible rope turned into a colorful mirage and launched another attack towards Mo Zhao. The seven-colored mirage shone forth with all its strength. There were many patterns emerging on the surface of the rope, as though countless of petals falling from the sky. Wherever the petals landed, it was as though spring had arrived. Warm breezes of spring air swept across the frozen glacier, thus making the stream lively again. Mo Zhao shook his head in disbelief. The kung fu that Gu Shijiu was performing was very strange, unlike anything that he had ever seen. Moreover, the strength of the kung fu was powerful, comparable to the power of the Lord himself.